find the truth, he's convinced he already has it, and if what he believes isn't true, then, hey, he isn't about to change his mind anyhow. It doesn't matter. It feels good, so he's going to cling to it no matter what. But just listening to him proves that he's ignorant of pretty much everything, and he's not honest or intelligent enough to admit it. And this should come as no surprise at all. So, let's go watch him screw up again. It's what Frank does best.
So my question is kind of a bounce back between your first two parts. When you were discussing the evidence given by physicists for the first verse in Genesis, and you went through and basically they were giving astounding empirical evidence for the ontological argument, basically. Going through and saying, okay, this is exactly what we know about the universe. It's amazing. It's astounding. It has to be evidence for some beginning, for some kind of creation. Which I believe you're right. I believe they do make a very strong case for that.
Even if that were true, it doesn't mean that beginning is the one described in the Bible. Now, we do know that the universe came into being, at least in its current form, about 13.8 billion years ago. We don't know what was there before that, and we know that it didn't just poof into existence out of nothing. That's what it says in the Bible, so you've already got problems. But I noticed that the religious love to say, see, it says there was a beginning, therefore my entire religion is right. No, it doesn't mean that at all. The things described in Genesis do not line up with things we know about the early universe. Not by a long shot. But let's let this guy finish his question.
I think, though, I kind of have a question about, going back to the first thing, when we're talking about absolute truth, or that there are truths. So most of those physicists I know do not interpret their evidence the same way you have. Mm-hmm. So they have their own set of truths, and then you guys have your own set of truths here.
Well, no. You can't have multiple sets of truths. You can only have one truth. The truth. Frank has a set of interpretations that he's made of the raw data, specifically arranged to line up with his pre-existing beliefs. Just because he's interpreted the data that way, that doesn't mean that his interpretation is correct. He has adopted a view for emotional reasons, and now he's picking and choosing information and interpreting it in such a way that it makes his pre-existing beliefs look more reasonable. None of this shows that his views or his beliefs are factually correct. And that's something he will never ever admit. But hey, let's let Frank screw it all up on his own.
Well, they have their own set of possibilities.
Yeah. And you notice that he never mentions that he only has possibilities too, right?
But my point is, if space, matter, and time had a beginning, if that's really true.
And it's only true from a certain perspective. Space, matter, and time had a beginning in their current form. That doesn't mean they didn't have an existence before the Big Bang. We just don't know. But Frank is taking that misconception and he's running around the stage with it like an idiot, like he has a clue, and clearly he doesn't.
Then whatever created space, matter, and time can't be made of space, matter, and time. In other words, there must be a cause beyond nature, something that's supernatural.
Right.
That assumes that anything created it. He's implying purpose where purpose cannot be demonstrated. And this is something that I come up against all the time. The religious ask the wrong questions because they are pretending they already know the answers. They will ask why the universe came into existence. That implies purpose. We have no reason at all to think that there was a purpose. The only valid question here is, how did the universe come into existence? We can answer that, at least in the broad strokes, although we're certainly getting better at it every day. But see, Frank doesn't care about the how. He thinks some magic man poofed it all into existence. He asks about the why because he wants to pretend that there had to be a purpose behind it. And he's wrong.
Right, correct. And then
Yeah.
that is where they fall back to the point where they don't have a specific explanation, but they do not believe the same explanation, the same truths, the same narratives that you have.
That does not follow. Whatever caused the universe to come into existence, and I use that word guardedly, doesn't have to be supernatural in the sense that Frank wants it to be. It could be just differently natural, another kind of natural, the nature of a pre-existing universe outside of our own. There doesn't have to be any intent involved. Some alien kid playing with their alien chemistry set added too much of chemical A to chemical B and poof, a universe was formed. They don't even know it happened. There is absolutely no reason of any kind to assume that there was intent behind it, that there was any kind of planning. Bang, something happened, and physics took over. But Frank needs to assume intent to get to his emotionally comforting goal. It's why Frank is so stupid.
Yeah, there's a difference between the evidence and the interpretation of the evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah, there is. But you're convinced that your interpretation is correct without being able to show that it is. You have an agenda. Science does not. You want to get to your emotionally comforting conclusion. Science just wants to find the truth. It doesn't care if it's comforting or not. It only cares if it's true. This is why the religious aren't taken seriously, because they've got a motive, and science doesn't work that way.
The evidence that everyone seems to agree on is that space, matter, and time had a beginning. Mm-hmm. The question is, how do you interpret what caused space, matter, and time?
Right. So,
and the interpretations I've seen from atheists are not only bad, even fellow atheists admit they're bad.
And there you go again, with your forced narrative based on your own wishful thinking. Credible people don't say, what caused it? They ask, where did it come from, and how did it get here? Those are very different questions. One wants to find the truth, and one, yours, Frank, wants to confirm your biases. Because you can't see where you go so rationally wrong. You don't understand why you're not taken seriously.
Like Lawrence Krauss trying to claim that the universe came from nothing, but his nothing is not really nothing, it's something. It's a quantum vacuum. Well, where'd the quantum vacuum come from? Mm-hmm. Or Stephen Hawking, who unbelievably said this on page 181 of his book, The Grand Design. He said, because there's a law like gravity, the universe can and will create itself out of nothing.
That's because you don't understand the words that scientists are using. They are using them in one sense, and you are interpreting them in an entirely different sense. It's the same reason why the religious usage of faith is so flawed, or belief, or pretty much everything else. In everything that you do, you operate while wearing your thick religious goggles that you seem incapable of taking off. It's why you have no clue what anyone is saying, and you have to reinterpret it through your own theological lens. And then you tell the other guy that they were wrong. Imagine that.
To which John Lennox, the famous Christian mathematician from Oxford, said, nonsense is still nonsense even when brilliant scientists say it.
And nonsense is still nonsense even when famous theologians say it. Now, I've already taken apart John Lennox in the past. He is nothing at all to be proud of.
That's funny. It is quite funny.
No, what's funny is the fact that you're standing there taking any of this crap seriously. Actually, funny isn't the right word. Sad, pathetic, reprehensible. Those are a lot closer to the mark. Because you don't actually understand things any better than Frank does. You're wearing the same goggles. What he says fits into your own personal preconceived notions about how the universe ought to be. You don't understand the reality behind it. And you notice that Frank has all of those gotcha quotes memorized. I will bet you those are the only passages out of either Lawrence Krauss or Stephen Hawking that he's ever read. He has no idea what either of those gentlemen said. He certainly doesn't understand it, even if he'd read it. He has no basis whatsoever to comprehend basic science. He has a degree in public administration and a degree in apologetics. That's it. He has no serious science education, but he seems perfectly happy to tell everyone what scientists mean through quotes he's ripped entirely out of context. Honesty is not his strong suit, is it? He doesn't know, and he doesn't care. He's got an agenda, and he'll do whatever it takes to reach that emotionally comforting goal through hook or crook, mostly in this case through crook. Frank is not an honest person. The more you watch him, the more obvious that it is. There isn't a whole lot in the world that Frank knows, but there is one thing that he's an absolute expert in. Frank is a tremendous liar. I'm not sure why that impresses anyone, because it shouldn't.
Bum